The sleek command center of the Stellar Alliance flagship hummed with an eerie silence as Supreme Commander Jinwoo watched his most prized battle group disappear from a holographic display. One by one, the bright dots representing his ships winked out of existence, like stars being snuffed from the night sky. His four-fingered hand trembled slightly as he gripped the edge of the command console. The humans weren't supposed to be capable of this. Their ships were crude, their weapons primitive, and their tactics should have been predictable. Yet here he stood, watching the impossible unfold before his eyes. "Replay the battle sequence," Jinwoo ordered, his voice steady despite the churning in his stomach. The holographic display rewound, showing his fleet's formation, a perfect arrowhead designed to pierce through any defense. It had worked flawlessly in 1,000 simulations. The human ships appeared on the display, scattered like dust in the wind. No formation, no apparent strategy. His analysts had laughed at their apparent disarray. That laughter had cost them dearly. "Focus on human ship movements," he commanded. The display zoomed in, tracking individual human vessels. They moved like no fleet he had ever seen, each ship acting independently yet somehow part of a greater whole. It reminded him of the swarm insects on his homeworld, creatures that seemed chaotic but operated with terrifying efficiency. His aide, HFY, approached with another report. Her usual green skin had taken on a pale, sickly hue. "Sir, we're receiving similar reports from other sectors. The humans aren't following any known combat doctrine. The 5th Fleet reports total losses in the Orion Arm. The 7th Fleet is trapped in the Carina sector. The humans..." She paused, checking her datapad again, as if hoping the information would change. "The humans are everywhere." Jinwoo remembered the Galactic Council's warning with painful clarity. 6 cycles ago, their ambassadors had presented evidence of humanity's potential for warfare. They had shown historical records of human conflicts, their rapid technological advancement, their ability to adapt and overcome seemingly impossible odds. The Council had advised caution, suggested diplomatic approaches instead of military action. But the Alliance had been too proud, too certain of their superiority. They had dismissed the warnings as overly cautious political maneuvering. After all, how could a species that had barely mastered faster-than-light travel pose any real threat to civilizations that had ruled the stars for millennia? The answer was unfolding before him in real time. "Sir," another officer called out, "we're detecting unusual energy signatures from the human vessels. They're using some kind of modified shield technology we've never seen before." Jinwoo zoomed in on one of the human ships. Their shields flickered in patterns that made no sense, absorbing energy in ways that defied the Alliance's understanding of defensive systems. They had somehow taken standard shield technology and transformed it into something entirely new. "Commander," HFY interrupted again, "we're receiving a priority transmission from High Command." The holographic display shifted, showing the stern face of High Admiral Kang. The Admiral's expression told Jinwoo everything he needed to know before a word was spoken. "Commander Jinwoo," the Admiral's voice was tight with barely controlled fury, "the humans have breached our inner defense perimeter. They're using our own transit gates against us, somehow predicting the quantum fluctuations we use for targeting. 3 colony worlds have already fallen." Jinwoo felt the weight of responsibility crushing down on him. As the commander who had first advocated for military action against Earth, this disaster rested squarely on his shoulders. "What are your orders, Admiral?" "Fall back to the designated rally points. All ships. We need to regroup and reassess our strategy." The Admiral's image flickered. And Jinwoo, the Council was right. We should have listened. The transmission ended, leaving Jinwoo staring at empty space. Around him, his command crew worked in tense silence, trying to salvage what they could from this catastrophic defeat. "Sir," HFY spoke softly, "what do we do now?" Jinwoo straightened his spine, forcing himself to project confidence he didn't feel. "We adapt. If we can't match their unconventional tactics, We need to understand them. Download all battle data. I want every detail analyzed. How they move, how they fight, how they think. He turned to face his crew, seeing the fear in their eyes. Fear he shared but couldn't show. The humans have surprised us. But this is just the beginning. We underestimated them once. We won't make that mistake again. As he spoke those words, another alert flashed across the main display. More human ships were emerging from hyperspace, their energy signatures unlike anything they had seen in the previous engagement. They were learning, adapting, evolving their tactics in real time. Jinmu watched as his remaining ships moved into defensive positions. The humans had taught them a harsh lesson about assumptions and pride. Now they would learn just how costly that lesson would be. The battle for survival had begun, and for the first time in his long military career, Jinwu wasn't certain his side would win. The Galactic Council's warning echoed in his mind like a funeral dirge. Underestimate humanity at your own peril. The massive view screen aboard the Alliance command ship, Eternal Victory, displayed a scene of absolute chaos. Admiral Du Young's mandibles clicked together in agitation as he watched his perfectly organized fleet dissolve into disarray. The humans were doing it again, fighting in ways that made no tactical sense, yet somehow working with devastating effectiveness. Status report on Battle Group 7, he demanded, his translator converting his clicks and whistles into standard Alliance speech. Lieutenant Jai Yun's fingers danced across her control panel. Sir, Battle Group 7 is... they're gone. The humans used their corvettes to draw them away from the main formation, then struck from multiple vectors simultaneously. Du Young fought back a wave of frustration. The human smaller ships darted between his capital vessels like annoying insects, their apparent randomness masking a deeper strategy he was only beginning to understand. His own ships, arranged in the time-tested arrow formations that had won 1,000 battles, were being picked apart piece by piece. Sir, incoming transmission from the HS at Yorktown, one of his communication officers announced. The name alone made Du Young's outer membrane ripple with anger. The humans had the audacity to broadcast their ship names openly, as if taunting them. Put it through, he ordered, straightening his posture. The screen flickered to life, showing the human female in what appeared to be a surprisingly simple uniform. Admiral Du Young, she said, her expression neutral. I am Captain Sarah Chen of the Earth Federation. Would you like to discuss terms of surrender? The Admiral's natural bioluminescence flared with indignation. We do not surrender to primitive species who barely understand the basics of space combat. The human captain's lips curved slightly. With respect, Admiral, I suggest you review the current tactical situation. Before Du Young could respond, Jai Yun's voice cut through the tension. Admiral, multiple human vessels detecting behind our lines. They're coming out of nowhere. The tactical display told the story. Somehow, the humans had managed to slip entire attack groups through his defense grid. While his attention had been focused on their erratic corvettes, their larger ships had maneuvered into position for a killing stroke. Impossible, Du Young whispered. Our sensors would have detected their approach. Sir, Jai Yun's voice was tight with realization. They've been using their damaged ships as sensor shadows. Every time we destroyed one of their vessels, the electromagnetic interference created a blind spot. They've been deliberately sacrificing ships to mask their movements. The human captain was still waiting patiently on the screen. As you can see, Admiral, your fleet is now surrounded. We have no desire for unnecessary casualties. Will you reconsider my offer? Du Young's mind raced through options. His ships were arranged for forward engagement, their strongest shields and weapons oriented toward where the enemy was supposed to be. But the humans were everywhere and nowhere, their smaller ships still darting between his capital ships, causing confusion and disrupting formations. Launch all fighters, he ordered. Maximum spread. Let's see how they handle being swarmed themselves. Jai Yun hesitated. Sir, they're jamming our launch bays. Somehow they've identified our fighter deployment patterns and are concentrating fire on those specific sections when they begin to open. The human captain spoke again. Admiral, we've studied your tactics extensively. Every standard response you're considering, we've already planned for. This doesn't have to end in more destruction. A new alert blared through the command center. The tactical display showed human ships executing maneuvers that should have torn them apart, their structural integrity somehow maintaining despite forces that defied the known laws of physics. How are they doing this? Du Young demanded. Their technology is inferior. Their ships are crude. Sir, Jai Yun said softly, I don't think it's about the technology. They're simply using it differently. Look at their movement patterns. They're not following any standard combat doctrine because they're adapting their tactics in real time. The truth hit Du Young like a physical blow. The humans weren't fighting according to any recognized strategy because they had no fixed strategy. Each ship captain was apparently free to make independent decisions while somehow maintaining coordination with the larger fleet. It was chaos theory applied to space combat, and it was tearing his rigidly organized forces apart. Admiral, the human captain said, her patience apparently endless, you have 3 minutes before we begin our final attack run. I suggest you use that time wisely. Do Young looked at his tactical display one last time. His beautiful fleet, once arranged in perfect geometric patterns, was now scattered and vulnerable. The humans had turned their apparent weakness, their unpredictability and seemingly primitive approach to warfare, into their greatest strength. Send the surrender signal, he finally ordered, his voice heavy with defeat. All ships stand down. As he watched his ships power down their weapons, Du Young realized that the Alliance had made a fundamental error in their assessment of humanity. They had assumed that technological superiority equated to tactical superiority. But the humans had proved that innovation wasn't about having the best technology. It was about using what you had in ways your enemy never expected. The human captain nodded respectfully. A wise decision, Admiral. Prepare for boarding parties. And Admiral, thank you for minimizing further loss of life. As the transmission ended, Du Young turned to Jai Yun. Make sure all our combat data is transmitted to Alliance High Command. They need to understand what we're truly facing here. The humans had changed the rules of space combat forever, and the galaxy would never be the same. Trade Minister Hyun Ki stared at the holographic financial charts floating before him, his 4 tentacles twitching nervously as streams of data painted a horrifying picture. Red indicators flashed everywhere, showing market crashes across multiple star systems. His third heart nearly stopped when he saw the latest figures from the Centauri exchange. This can't be happening, he muttered, his chromatophores flickering between shades of distress. The trading terminal on his desk chimed again with another alert. The 4th major trading house had just declared bankruptcy. His assistant, Subin, rushed into the office, her scales shifting to an alarming shade of pale blue. Minister, the humans have somehow gained access to the quantum-encrypted trading networks. They're not just monitoring our transactions. They're manipulating them. Hyun Ki's tentacles coiled tightly around his chair. The Alliance had always prided itself on its economic superiority. Their financial systems were supposed to be impenetrable, built on technologies that humanity shouldn't have been able to comprehend, let alone exploit. Show me the pattern, he ordered, pushing aside his fear to focus on the data. The holographic display expanded, revealing trading activities across 3 sectors. What he saw made his blood run cold. The humans weren't just attacking military targets or disrupting supply lines. They were waging a kind of economic warfare that the Alliance had never encountered. Small trades, seemingly random at first glance, created ripple effects that cascaded through the market. They had somehow figured out the algorithms that govern the Alliance's automated trading systems. Minister, Subin said, her voice trembling, the humans are using our own market safety protocols against us. Every time our systems try to correct for their manipulations, they trigger bigger crashes. The emergency council chamber was already filling with representatives from various trading houses when Hyunki arrived. The panic in the room was palpable. Species that normally maintained rigid control were showing visible signs of distress. The humans have somehow turned our economic defenses into weapons, Hyunki explained to the gathered council. They identified the fail-safes we built into our trading systems and found ways to trigger them deliberately. One of the council members, a crystalline being named Dalvo, pulsed with angry light. Impossible. Their own economic systems are primitive compared to ours. They still use physical currency in some places. Hyunki brought up a new display, showing the intricate web of transactions that had led to the latest market crash. Look at this pattern. They're not trying to understand our entire system. They're finding weak points and exploiting them with precision. The data showed how human traders had targeted specific commodities, creating artificial shortages that forced prices to skyrocket. When the Alliance's automated systems tried to compensate, the humans would suddenly flood the market, causing devastating crashes. They're using strategies from their own financial history, Subin added, pulling up historical records from Earth. Market manipulations, short selling, coordinated trading. Tactics our systems were never designed to defend against because we considered them too primitive to be a threat. Another alert sounded through the chamber. The Rigel Banking Consortium, one of the oldest financial institutions in the Alliance, had just suspended all trading operations. The ripple effects were already spreading through connected markets. We need to shut down the entire network, someone suggested desperately. If we do that, our entire economy collapses, Hyunki countered. The humans have positioned themselves perfectly. If we keep trading, they can manipulate our markets. If we stop trading, we paralyze ourselves. A new message flashed across his personal terminal, an offer from the Human Economic Council. His tentacles trembled as he read it aloud to the chamber. We are prepared to discuss terms for economic stabilization. Our conditions are simple: equal trading rights for human merchants in all Alliance markets, and a complete restructuring of interstellar trading regulations. The chamber erupted in chaos. Equal trading rights would mean giving humans access to financial systems that had been exclusive to Alliance members for millennia. But as Hyunki looked at the continuing market crashes displayed above them, he realized they might not have a choice. They'd backed us into a corner, he admitted to the council. We either adapt to their presence in our markets, or we watch our entire economic system crumble. As the council debated furiously, Hyunki couldn't help but admire the elegant simplicity of the human strategy. They hadn't needed to understand every aspect of Alliance economics. They had simply needed to find the right pressure points and push. The humans had proven once again that technological superiority meant nothing without the wisdom to use it properly. The Alliance's complex financial systems, built over thousands of years, were being undone by tactics that they had dismissed as outdated and primitive. The humans, Hyunki announced to the council, have taught us a costly lesson about the dangers of underestimation. The question now is, how much more are we willing to lose before we learn from it? The room fell silent as the implications sank in. The economic war had been lost before they even realized it had begun, and the galaxy's financial landscape would never be the same. Cultural Preservation Officer Min Seo stood at her office window, watching the streets of Capital City with growing dismay. Below, young Senderi walked past wearing what appeared to be human genes, modified for their six-legged bodies. Some had even dyed their natural bioluminescent patterns to mimic human fashion trends. She turned away from the window, unable to watch anymore. Her desk was covered with reports detailing the rapid spread of human culture across Alliance worlds. What had started as simple curiosity about Earth entertainment had evolved into something far more concerning. Officer Min Seo, her assistant Yunha, called from the doorway. You need to see this. The younger Zenderi was holding a data pad, her own bioluminescence pulsing with worry. The report on the screen showed footage from last night's demonstrations. Thousands of young aliens from various species had gathered in the entertainment district, playing human music and performing their dances. Some had even modified their vocal organs to sing in human styles. How did we lose control so quickly? Min Seo wondered aloud, her antennae drooping. Just one cycle ago, our youth were content with traditional entertainment forms. The answer was displayed right there in the footage. Human entertainment wasn't just spreading. It was evolving, being adapted and transformed by each species that embraced it. Young Meraks were using their natural ability to change colors to create stunning visual performances set to human music. Crystalline Vorde were incorporating human dance moves into their traditional light-sharing ceremonies. The latest surveys are even more concerning. Yoonha reported, 60% of our youth now consume human media daily. They're not just watching it. They're creating their own versions, mixing human styles with our traditional arts. Min Seo accessed her terminal, bringing up more reports. The trend wasn't limited to entertainment. Young aliens were embracing human concepts of individual expression and personal freedom, ideas that challenged the very foundation of many alliance societies. Look at this, she pointed to a particularly troubling report. 3 major education centers have reported students questioning our traditional hierarchical structure. They're using human historical examples to argue for social changes. A notification popped up on her screen. Another underground human media sharing network had been discovered. But for every one they shut down, 3 more seemed to appear. The humans weren't even actively pushing their culture anymore. The Alliance's own youth were doing it for them. Officer, Yoon-ha said hesitantly, maybe we're approaching this the wrong way. The more we try to restrict access to human culture, the more appealing it becomes. Min Seo's antennae twitched in frustration. She had seen it herself. The banned human entertainment channels had more viewers than the official Alliance broadcasts. Young aliens were using encryption techniques learned from human networks to share restricted content. We have to protect our cultural heritage, Min Seo insisted, but even to her own ears, the words sounded hollow. A new alert caught her attention. Footage from a recent celebration in the Arts District. Young aliens from a dozen different species had organized what humans called a festival. Traditional Alliance art forms were being performed alongside human-inspired pieces, creating something entirely new. The human ambassador sent a message. Yoon-ha mentioned carefully. They're offering to help establish cultural exchange programs. They say fighting the spread of culture only leads to its preservation in hidden forms. Min Seo watched the festival footage again. The creativity was undeniable. Species that had maintained rigid artistic traditions for millennia were suddenly producing works that blended styles in ways she had never imagined possible. Did you know, Yoon-ha added, that human culture itself is a mixture of thousands of different traditions from their homeworld? They don't see cultural exchange as contamination. They see it as evolution. The truth hit Min Seo like a gravitational wave. The Alliance had been trying to preserve their cultures in amber, unchanging and pure. But culture, like life itself, needed to grow and adapt to survive. Perhaps, she said slowly, her bioluminescence shifting to a thoughtful pattern, we need to stop thinking of this as contamination and start seeing it as transformation. She began drafting a new proposal. Instead of trying to block human cultural influence, they could guide it, helping their youth understand and appreciate their own heritage while embracing new forms of expression. Schedule a meeting with the human cultural attaché, she told Yoon-ha, and bring me everything we have on Earth's historical cultural exchanges. As she worked, Min Seo could hear the sounds of human music drifting up from the streets below, now mixed with traditional Xendari harmonics. The combination was surprisingly beautiful, not a replacement of their culture, but an evolution of it. The humans hadn't defeated their cultural defenses through force. They had simply shared something that resonated across species boundaries. In trying to prevent cultural contamination, the Alliance had failed to understand a fundamental truth. Culture wasn't a fortress to be defended, but a garden to be tended. And perhaps Min Seo realized that was the most important lesson humanity had to teach them. Ambassador Tahoe adjusted his ceremonial robes as he walked through the gleaming halls of the peace station, trying to hide his nervousness. The station's neutral ground floated at the exact midpoint between human and Alliance space, a perfect symbol of the compromise they were attempting to reach. Behind him, his aide Harin carried stacks of data pads containing the latest peace proposals. The humans had surprised everyone by offering terms that were not just reasonable, but showed a deep understanding of Alliance politics and culture. "Ambassador," Harin whispered, "the Drachnid delegation has requested a private meeting before the main session. They say it's urgent." Tahoe nodded slightly. The Drachnids were the third species this week to seek separate talks. The Alliance, once unified in its opposition to humanity, was fracturing under the pressure of defeat and the allure of human diplomatic offerings. The meeting chamber ahead was designed to accommodate all known spacefaring species. Tahoe took his place at the large, circular table, noting how the human delegation had arrived exactly on time. Not early to show dominance, not late to show disrespect. Every detail of their diplomatic approach was carefully calculated. Ambassador Tahoe, the human representative, smiled warmly. "Thank you for meeting with us again. Shall we begin with the trade provisions?" The human approach to negotiations continued to baffle them. They had the upper hand militarily and economically, yet they negotiated as if they were equals. Their proposals consistently included benefits for both sides, showing an understanding of long-term stability over short-term gains. "Before we proceed," Tahoe said carefully, "several member species have expressed concerns about maintaining their autonomy under the proposed treaty." The human ambassador nodded understanding. "Of course, we've revised Section 7 to include additional protections for individual species' sovereign rights. We remember our own history of colonialism too well to repeat those mistakes." Harin discreetly passed him the latest intelligence report. 3 more Alliance worlds had opened secret communications with Earth. The humans were simultaneously negotiating on multiple levels: formal talks with the Alliance as a whole, private discussions with individual species, and cultural exchanges with civilian populations. "The Alliance Council is concerned," Tahoe continued, "about the rapid spread of human influence throughout our territories." "We understand those concerns," the human replied. "That's why our proposals include mutual cultural protection clauses. We're not interested in erasing Alliance cultures. We want to learn from them, share with them, grow together." A message flashed on Tahoe's personal screen. Another Alliance species was threatening to break away if the peace talks failed. The humans had somehow mastered the art of applying pressure without seeming to do so. "Your military forces," Tahoe noted, "remain in strategic positions throughout Alliance space." The human ambassador smiled again. "Just as your forces remain in their positions. Trust takes time to build. We're prepared to establish joint patrol zones as confidence-building measures." Tahoe found himself admiring their approach despite himself. Every potential objection was met with a reasonable solution. Every demand was balanced with a concession. They were playing diplomatic chess at a level the Alliance had never encountered. "The Council is particularly interested in your technology-sharing proposals," he said, watching their reaction carefully. "Of course," the human responded smoothly. "We believe that shared progress benefits everyone. Our scientists are already excited about the possibility of collaborative research projects." Harin quietly updated the negotiation statistics on his pad. The humans had made 43 separate proposals, each one building on the others, creating a web of interconnected agreements that would bind their civilizations together in ways that would be difficult to undo. "Ambassador," Tahoe said finally, "why are you being so reasonable? Your military position would allow you to demand far more." The human's expression became thoughtful. "Because we've learned from our own history that victory without reconciliation is temporary. We're not interested in dominating the Alliance. We want to join it, improve it, help it grow into something greater than either of us could achieve alone." Tahoe looked down at the peace proposals again. The humans had crafted terms that would gradually transform the Alliance from within, not through force, but through mutual benefit and willing cooperation. I will advise the Council, he said slowly, that continuing this conflict would be against our best interests. Your understanding of compromise is impressive. The human ambassador nodded appreciatively. The art of compromise isn't about winning or losing. It's about finding a path forward that benefits everyone. As the meeting concluded, Tahoe realized that the humans' greatest victory wasn't on the battlefield. It was here, in quiet rooms where the future was being shaped not by weapons, but by words and wisdom. The Alliance had prepared for every type of warfare except this, the subtle art of making peace more attractive than conflict. The humans weren't just defeating them, they were transforming them into willing partners in a new galactic order. Harin, he said quietly as they left the chamber, schedule calls with all council members. It's time to explain why peace isn't just our best option. It's our only option. Chief Engineer Kita stood in stunned silence before the captured human vessel's engine core. The quantum matrix configuration before him defied everything. He thought he knew about propulsion technology. His maintenance drones hovered nearby, their sensors struggling to make sense of the elegant simplicity they were recording. This is impossible, he muttered, his diagnostic tools displaying readings that seemed to mock decades of Alliance engineering principles. Yunhee, come look at this. His colleague hurried over, her own diagnostic tools already scanning the human modifications. The humans hadn't just copied Alliance quantum core technology. They had fundamentally reimagined it. Where Alliance designs used complex arrays of quantum stabilizers, the humans had achieved the same results with half the components. Look at this, Kita pointed to the core's central chamber. They've reduced the quantum core's size by half while doubling its output. The efficiency ratings are off our charts. Yunhee's eyes widened as she studied the readings. But how? Our best engineers spent centuries perfecting these systems. The humans have had access to quantum technology for less than a decade. Keita moved deeper into the engine room, his scanners revealing more surprises with each step. The humans had approached the technology with no preconceptions, no established right way of doing things. They had looked at Alliance designs not as gospel, but as a starting point. They're not thinking like engineers, he realized aloud. They're thinking like innovators. Look at how they've rerouted the plasma flow. It's completely counterintuitive, but it works better than our standard configuration. The human ship had been captured during a failed raid on an Alliance supply line. Initial reports had dismissed it as inferior technology, but now Kita understood. They had been looking at it all wrong. The humans weren't trying to match Alliance technology. They were reinventing it. Send me the scan data from Section 4, Yunhee called out. She was examining the ship's power distribution network. These conduit arrangements, they're using principles from their primitive electrical systems, but applying them to quantum energy flow. Keita checked his readings again. The humans had taken concepts from their early technological development and scaled them up to work with advanced systems. Ideas that the Alliance had abandoned centuries ago were being reproposed in ways nobody had considered. Their shield modulators, he noted, they're running them in parallel instead of series. It should create interference patterns, but somehow they've turned that into an advantage. A maintenance drone beeped urgently, drawing their attention to another discovery. The human ship's computer core was a hybrid of quantum and digital systems, something Alliance engineers had declared impossible. Yet here it was, working more efficiently than pure quantum processors. Kita, Yunhee said slowly, I don't think we're dealing with copies anymore. This is evolution. They're taking our technology and pushing it in directions we never imagined. More engineering teams were arriving now, drawn by the unusual readings their instruments were detecting. Each new discovery sparked heated discussions and disbelieving exclamations. The command needs to see this, Kita decided. Our entire approach to technological development needs to be reconsidered. But as he prepared his report, a troubling thought occurred to him. If this was what humans could do with captured Alliance technology in just a few years, what were they developing on their own? What other innovations were they creating while the Alliance clung to its traditional designs? Yunhee, he called out, check the manufacturing dates on these components. The results confirmed his fears. The human modifications were getting more sophisticated with each new iteration. They were learning and adapting at an unprecedented rate. We thought giving them access to our technology would show them our superiority, Kita said grimly. Instead, we've given them the tools to surpass us. The implications were staggering. The Alliance had fallen into a trap of its own making. By exposing humans to advanced technology, they had expected to demonstrate their dominance. Instead, they had provided humanity with a foundation to build something entirely new. We need to change our entire approach, he told the gathered engineers. Stop trying to prevent humans from accessing our technology. We need to start learning from them instead. As if to emphasize his point, another drone reported an anomaly. The human ship's waste recycling system was operating at 99% efficiency, far beyond Alliance capabilities. They had taken one of the most mundane systems and transformed it into something revolutionary. Kaita looked around the engine room one last time, seeing it now not as a collection of stolen technology, but as a glimpse into the future. The humans hadn't just adapted Alliance technology. They had started a technological revolution that would reshape the galaxy. And the Alliance had handed them the keys to make it happen. High Counselor Sun Mi gazed across the Grand Chamber of Unity, where representatives from every known spacefaring civilization had gathered. The massive hall, with its soaring crystalline arches and ancient symbols of power, had witnessed countless historic moments, but none quite like this. Today, after centuries of unchanging order, the Alliance would welcome its first new council member since the Great Expansion. And not just any member, humanity, a species that had achieved in decades what had taken others millennia. The documents are ready, High Counselor, her aide whispered, placing the quantum-sealed treaty on the podium before her. The text glowed with verification markers, each signature space waiting to fundamentally alter the galaxy's power structure. Look at them, Sun Mi said quietly, observing the human delegation. They wore simple but elegant diplomatic attire, showing respect for the occasion while maintaining their distinct identity. Unlike most species who tried to impress with elaborate displays of technological advancement, the humans projected quiet confidence. Standing at the podium, Sun Mi activated the chamber's universal translation field. Representatives of the civilized galaxy, she began, her voice carrying to every corner of the vast space. We gather today not just to end a conflict, but to begin a new era. The assembled delegates shifted in their seats. Some showed signs of discomfort, others excitement. The human representatives remained perfectly still, their expressions attentive but neutral. For 10,000 cycles, the Alliance has guided the development of galactic civilization. We believed our path was the only path, our wisdom absolute. We were wrong. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Such an admission from a High Counselor was unprecedented. Humanity has taught us that progress isn't linear. While we perfected our technology, they perfected adaptation. While we built walls of tradition, they built bridges of innovation. Their ships may have seemed crude, but their tactics revolutionized space warfare. Their economy appeared simple, yet they understood market forces better than our oldest trading houses. Sun Mi gestured to the human delegation. They took our most advanced technology and improved it not through centuries of refinement, but through radical reimagining. They absorbed our culture not to replace their own, but to create something new and vibrant. The chamber's holographic displays showed images of human achievements, their innovative ship designs, their cultural contributions, their diplomatic successes. Some say they achieved their position through force, Sun Mi continued. But I say they achieved it through understanding. Understanding that true strength lies not in superiority, but in diversity. Not in tradition alone, but in the courage to evolve. She lifted the treaty, its quantum markers sparkling. This document does more than grant humanity a council seat. It transforms the Alliance itself, No longer will we be guardians of stasis, but shepherds of change. The human delegation's leaders stood, walking forward to take their place at the signing podium. Around the chamber, other species representatives watched with varying degrees of acceptance and concern. The galaxy stands at a crossroads, Sun Mai declared. We can cling to our old ways and stagnate, or embrace this change and grow. Humanity has shown us that advancement comes not from age or power, but from the willingness to adapt, to learn, to become more than we are. As the treaty's quantum markers began accepting signatures, Sun Mai watched the humans closely. They showed no triumph, no arrogance, only quiet determination and what seemed like genuine hope for the future. The Council's original warning about humanity was correct, she concluded, but not in the way we thought. They warned us that humans would change everything. We assumed that meant destruction. Instead, it meant evolution. The final signatures were applied, and the treaty pulsed with completed verification. A new age of galactic civilization had begun. Looking at the human delegates now taking their place among the council members, Sun Mai understood that this was more than a political shift. Humanity hadn't just earned a seat at the table, they had changed the nature of the table itself. The galaxy would never be the same. And perhaps, she thought as the chamber erupted in historic applause, that was exactly what it needed. For in the end, humanity's greatest achievement wasn't defeating the Alliance, it was showing them a better way forward, a way that promised not just survival, but growth. Not just power, but progress. The stars themselves seemed to shine brighter that day, as if acknowledging that their children had finally learned to dance together in the cosmic ballet.